Hi everybody and welcome to my crafting channel. I'm Alana from Upcycling NZ. Well, it's that time of the year again. Christmas is coming up very quickly. I'm taking a piece of cardboard and I'm just going to cut a template out. And I'm just establishing the length, and then I'm going to centre the width and run a line from each corner to that centre point, creating a triangle about the size I want for my bunting. Then I'm just going to put it into my handy dandy little cutter and slice that nice and straight. It really does help to label your template because you're going to be having a lot of cuts and a lot of paper around, so you don't want to lose them. I'm also going to cut a little rectangle that'll fit nicely within that triangle. If you want to use the same measurements I have, this is a 5 by 5.5 centimetre rectangle. My triangle measurements were 13 centimetres across the top and 15 centimetres down through the centre to the tip. I have all these little offcuts of music paper which I'm going to draw around this template and cut out. I started using my cutting machine to do this, but I found it was a little bit too time consuming doing it that way, and I ended up cutting around the template with scissors. I'm making 3 strings of Christmas bunting today, so I'm going to use a variety of papers which I think complement each other, and I'm going for a vintage look. So I've got a red Christmas paper, the music paper, and I've used a creamy coloured textured wallpaper. To cut out my triangles, I want them to be doubled over. I'll fold it white side up so that I can see my lines. This wrapping paper is relatively thick. You couldn't use the really thin stuff for this. Don't worry too much about the offcuts, we'll make use of those. So I've worked out how many I need of each, and I'm doing a variety of the different papers to cut my triangles. Now I'll just fold them back the right way around and put a nice strong crease in. I happen to have a few music books, so I'll take several pages from each different book so they have a slightly different font. I get my music books from thrift stores and op shops, and I got the wallpaper for $1 for that roll. Craft materials really don't have to cost that much if you're clever about it. I've also cut a different style for one of my strings of bunting. Now I can take all my offcuts and the stencil set that I have, and I'll just pencil the letters on, and when I cut them I'm going to cut around those gaps which you get in your stencils so that they're a solid letter. Two of the strings of bunting I'm making are going to say Merry Christmas using the full words, and I'll make one shorter one in that different style saying Merry Christmas with an X. For all the letters with a hole in them, I'm just going to use the standing knife. I find that a lot easier. Again, I've used a mix of those papers to cut those letters out. To give these a vintage feel, I'm using some antiquing wax, and I just use a little cut off piece of sponge for this. It's dry, and I'll just gently apply that to the edges of my music paper and the wallpaper. I couldn't use it on the red paper because you couldn't see it and it wasn't sticking. I'm doing the same to the lettering, and then I'm ready to start putting my bunting together. I'll do that using some white PVA glue, or you could use Mod Podge, and I put it in a little squeezy bottle. It just makes it a bit easier to work with. and spread it out with a paintbrush. I'm just mixing my papers up as much as I can, creating as much contrast in the letters as possible so they stand out. I'm also using a glue stick. I found that was easier to use in some cases. I've started making multiples when I make things like this, especially if it's something you can easily use as gifts. There's a lot of effort involved in having all of these things lying around the house at the same time, so I don't want to have to get everything out again if I wanted to make another one. I'll be using this red twine, and I'm just going to melt the end and sharpen it so that I can thread some beads on. This one will have white beads. And I've worked out how many beads I need to have one either side of each letter on my bunting. And then in the centre, I'll put a large bead on so that it separates those two words a little bit. One will have gold beads and the last one's going to have copper beads. I'm pulling some of the twine through so that you have a lot to tie to either end of wherever you want to hang these when they're finished. And then I'm just sliding those triangles on, and I'll use my glue stick to just connect the bottom. I'm leaving the gap at the top so that those triangles can slide along. That way if you hang them and you need to stretch them out a little bit to fit your space, you can do that afterwards. When you reach the middle between the words, I'm putting 3 beads in between just to create that gap. I'll do the same with the other shaped bunting. And the finishing touch is to go around all of the music paper and wallpaper with antiquing wax, and it's done. Consider giving handmade gifts made with love this Christmas. As always, I really appreciate you watching, guys. Have an epic holiday season and be responsible this Christmas, and don't forget to reduce, reuse and recycle. Bye for now.